The far distance. My wife and I got married back in 2012 and have been together ever since. We have gone to different locations and have 2 kids now. Last year around October I found out she was cheating on me. I was absolutely devastated and was thinking about what I could have done wrong. Long story short, I don't think I was being a very good husband. Our communication wasn't very good and we got in really stupid fights. However, we both started going to marriage counseling and I thought everything was improving. Prior to separation day she went out and bought me probably over $1,000 worth of items, probably within a month. However, 2 weeks prior we had no physical interaction whatsoever. I even told her this and that I was worried about us. Finally, we got in another stupid argument and like marriage counseling taught us we would cool off, come back and talk about it. However, when we started talking it wasn't about the argument. It was about divorce. I told her my feelings on the divorce and how I felt. She didn't feel the same way and asked for a divorce. 2 days later we ended up separating due to law enforcement. I was charged with disorderly conduct essentially for getting in an argument with my wife. CT justice system is messed up. But it has been a month of us not talking and she still hasn't filed for divorce. I have been expecting papers but haven't received any. I have no idea what's going on. The only thing I really know is that she wishes that she hadn't called the cops. I'm confused and scared and don't know what to do. This is the love of my life and I'm willing to do anything to try and make this work. I do believe she is talking to someone else. And one thing I haven't mentioned is that she is a very impulsive person. She does stuff without thinking of consequences. I do have an attorney and I am ready for the divorce. I am getting frustrated to the fact that she hasn't even filed yet. I have been thinking a lot this week about the type of limbo I have been dealing with. The fact that it has been a month and she hasn't filed. I'm sick of being dragged through the mud and I'm going to file tomorrow. That will give me some answer. Either she is serious about this or not. And if she is willing to accept responsibility for her own actions and start being part of the marriage or not. I have been very frustrated over the past month. I think this will give me some more control on the situation due to the fact that I can't speak. It will make her react in terms of what to do. As far as impulsive, she makes decisions without realizing the consequences of her action. Like I think I said she called the cops, got me arrested, but is not apparently sorry for doing so. She doesn't think things all the way through and doesn't realize the severity of the entire situation. But like I said, I am going to file tomorrow. Does anyone know how long it takes for them to be served? Update: I have filed for divorce. It had to have been one of the most painful things I have ever done. That woman was my world and I made sacrifices in my career for our family. So today I am having a really hard day. I have good suspicion that she is talking to other guys. And she was served probably 3 hours after I filed the paperwork. No reaction out of her. However, I may not hear anything until the court date. But I am hurting so bad because she was the love of my life. I'd do anything for that woman. I can't tell you how many times she has hit me and abused me and I never once called the cops on her. I know it sounds terrible, but love makes you do crazy things. Her and I have been through hell and back fighting to be with each other. The relationship wasn't the best, but marriage doesn't come with manuals, and I know if we worked on it, we could make this marriage amazing. But I have come to realize that it takes 2 to make a marriage successful. One person can't do everything by themselves. The fact that I generate the most income as well as pay for all the bills. I don't see how she can live where we are at with the way the economy is. That's what hurts the most, is I know she isn't going to have the best life if we divorce. Myself, I'll be fine. But like I said, love makes you do crazy things and makes you care more about your significant other than you do yourself. Now it's going to happen regardless of whether she wants to just try and live off me or not. Our estimate date is early Jan. That's 3 months for her to figure her crap out. As for the other guy with this codependency, I can kind of get what you're saying. But what I don't really get is when a woman sits there and tells you that she loves you and that she will always love you, but want a divorce. On top of that, she still buys you crap because she is thinking of you. But are you saying I am codependent on her? Because I will say I am 100% capable of being dependent on my own. I don't need her to live life. But when I married her, to me that's a life commitment no matter what. Obviously, there are circumstances such as this one where I will not put up with. But just because I'm sad for losing her doesn't make me codependent on her. I will not stop this divorce unless there are huge changes within our relationship. I'm not going to take her shenanigans anymore. She has a part-time job and was able to buy things. However, she doesn't make much to support herself even with a paid-off car. That, and she applied for her own credit card. Update: she was served with papers and she ended up freaking out in terms of upset and didn't know why this was happening. She was watching my calendar and to mess with her I put a date in there at a place nearby where the burgers were supposed to be really good. Pascal, the burger wasn't that good. However, apparently, she ended up driving by and saw my truck in the parking lot and started crying. She is now thinking about what she wants to do versus straight divorce. I'm hoping this is a turn in the right direction for us to get our marriage back on track. I know things have been done in the past, but I know if we both come together with a plan to fix our marriage, it can be done. My comment: what has she done to show you she loves you? Her being afraid of losing you doesn't mean she loves you. I strongly recommend you proceed with the divorce at this point. She has already cheated on you. She has already abused you. What does she have to do to prove she does not love you? She loves herself and the things you provide her. She would gladly keep on using those things and talk to other guys. It is not your problem that she doesn't make much money. It is not your problem if she cries at the thought of losing you. Those are her problems, and those are the rewards for the way she has treated you. When people show you who they are, believe them. She initially bought you $1,000 worth of stuff because you complained about the lack of bonding and intimacy. This was done to appease you and to appease her own guilt, and to throw you off track. She does love you, and she does love that new independence that she has found. The devil has her by her sensitive short hairs. She likes the new thrills, fears where they will lead to. She is very conflicted and is not marriage-worthy. I suspect some sort of mental issue is at play here. Depression, BPD, don't know. Let her go, divorce her, maybe pick her up off of the ground some distance later. Maybe not. Story 2. Everything really does eventually come back to bite you. I've been married 32 years. The first 10 years were rocky. My husband had drug and gambling issues that we needed to work through, but he eventually became a good husband and father and now grandfather. However, I found out a few months ago through Ancestry site that he fathered a child, now adult, 25 years ago through infidelity. He admitted to the affair, apologized, cried, and was profoundly sorry. He does not want contact with this person as he feels they have a father in their current home, and he deleted his Ancestry account to prevent future problems. However, I feel like a loser and a moron. It's been months, and I'm in therapy, but I still feel pretty bad and still pretty angry. Any tips on how to move forward? Our marriage was in a great place prior to this discovery. He's gotten into therapy. I'm not sure what else I need him to do, though I feel I do need more. He didn't know he had fathered a child. Ancestry told him. She was also married at the time, so I'm guessing her husband's name is on the birth certificate. He just found out. But he's still been lying, though honestly, I wish I didn't know. He claims it was the only affair. But how could I ever really know? I either choose to believe or not. He didn't know about the child. That I believe because he was pretty shocked to see the Ancestry results. He claimed O broke it off after one time sleeping together. Hard to believe, but that's what he claims. I've asked him to come clean and he gave me some details. That she worked for him at his previous job, that she broke it off early in the affair, maybe found out she was pregnant. He was moved to a different work location soon after and didn't see her again. I too feel like what else has he lied about? But then again, I also understand not telling for fear of loss of everything. I can't believe I'm in the middle of it all. I hate him for putting me in jeopardy for STD and for breaking our trust. He used some meds when we were dating, but it was getting progressively worse and reached an ugly peak early in our marriage. He went to rehab, but I think even though the meds stopped, he still thought like an addict. The O was not in his life prior to our marriage. I don't know what I would have done if I had found out then. I think I would have left, but it's hard for me to truly know. I had 3 small kids when this happened. I might have stayed out of necessity. I feel he needs to suffer, but when I do make him suffer, he weeps and apologizes, and I feel horrible. Hard to feel that I have to take care of him while I'm trying to take care of myself. I am trying to learn as much as I can to better understand and handle my situation, and have already been reading through the forums. There's so much there, but I'm appreciative of it. Right now, my emotions are a roller coaster. Some moments I want him gone and others I don't. I have no idea where this will take me. Thank you for your kindness. I hate feeling like a victim. He absolutely is devastated, and while I am glad to see that, I also feel that his devastation is not my problem. I'm all for letting the dust settle. I just hope it eventually does. It's been too raw. He was a piece of crap, and there were years that I wanted out of the marriage, but practical reasons like finances prevented me, or maybe I was scared. I don't know. But he did a lot of self-awareness work to realize how his history of child abuse probably caused his addiction issues. So, he's not a piece of crap anymore. But I don't feel the same way about him anymore because I feel like I don't know who he is, at least right now. I don't know if that feeling will change. I think counselors choose the easiest path. One that will write their clients but not be too difficult and painful. And I think that tactic can come back to bite the couple later on in their marriage. I don't know how I would have handled this monstrosity 25 years ago, but at least it would have been my decision and not his. And I could own it and move forward any way I wished. I've already told him I want him to take a polygraph, and he said okay. Today I will start looking at dates to pin him down to an appointment. I'm pretty good at reading him, so I may learn something, but so far, I see no reluctance. But he may think I'm bluffing. I gave him hell for his BS sighing already. To his small credit, he accepts what I tell him and doesn't fight me on it. But he can still do more. I am in therapy, but I don't think she's a trauma specialist, though I do like her. He is in therapy too at my request. We do have 3 children together. They are all grown. When this happened, they were small. I've asked my husband to change our bank accounts to my name, and we added a pod to our kids should I die before him. I know his child is innocent and a victim too, but I do not want this person to take inheritance from my kids. I will also consult a lawyer about how to be sure that doesn't happen. Right now, I feel sort of numb. It's a crappy feeling. It's also not fair for me to have to tend to his feeling, as I am a pretty empathetic person. I don't know how I feel about the separation part. I found out in late August and was separated from him most of September. I asked him to come back not because I missed him but because I needed to talk about stuff, and I didn't find the phone to be a satisfactory way to do that. Sometimes I do wish to be alone with my feelings, but then I wonder if I'll be able to do the work that I need to do. I was glad, when we were apart, that I was fine with being alone. It gave me confidence that I could handle D if that's the route I choose to take. I don't feel insecure right now. I could ask for passwords, but I don't feel the need to. But I do feel very comfortable asking for that. And I'm reasonably confident that he would comply. I actually know quite a few of his passwords already. I do believe this was part of his past psyche and not his current. How extensive this was in his past is another story though, one I don't have answers to. Reconciling this event is my biggest challenge, one I'm unsure I can do. If he can't handle my trauma and needs to bail, then he's not worth my effort. I won't walk on eggshells to keep him around. I think he's the one who should be doing that. I'm not trying to be rude, and I'd genuinely like to hear more comments on this issue. He didn't find out about the child until recently. At the time, his job involved moving from location to location, sort of acting as a consultant. He was only at that location for about 4 weeks before being sent elsewhere, and the two of them had no further contact. Theo was also married at the time. It's possible she didn't know who the father was, but I suspect she did. I stalked her FB page. I know I shouldn't, and she has many posts about a family member who died from drugs. Odd. My husband looked just like him. Part of me thinks she planned this out to replace the person she lost. But I have an active imagination. I have no idea if the whole family did a DNA test. I'm going to try to get an appointment later today. I've contemplated contacting her, but I don't know if it's the right thing for me to do. It might make things worse for me. I think I'd rather deal with my husband. Though I too find it hard to believe that they slept together only once, and I've expressed this multiple times. Only the person who submits DNA gets matches. Unless the child's father submits DNA, he is not going to know that he doesn't match his daughter. In addition, this child is an adult and handling their own ancestry account without interference from their family. How we found out. We got an alert. My grown daughter, who also got an alert, emailed the child to ask what the relationship was since they shared so much DNA. My daughter actually asked the child point blank if they knew who their father was. The child laughed it off and said, "Oh, we're probably just cousins. I know who my parents are. Is your father Italian?" Once my family all figured out what was going on, my daughter and husband deleted their accounts on Ancestry. But the child's reaction was curious. Maybe they know and just wanted ethnicity info, or maybe they're not too bright. I don't know what to make of it all. My children already know. They have Ancestry accounts and they're the ones who got the alerts. They're the ones you told me and my husband. This is the way he was outed, by his children in front of his family while on vacation. And this is the way I learned about it, through them. They have discussed their feelings with my husband, and although they were initially shocked and upset, they have forgiven him, which just leaves me to figure out what I need or even can do. The child is innocent. I still want nothing to do with this person. Perhaps because the person is a painful reminder. Maybe that will change in the future, but that's where I am now. My own children do not know how I feel about the child, nor do I intend to ever tell them. I would never sway their inclination to see or not see this person. They are free to do what they wish. But yes, adultery impacts so many. I have rage for the O, and I often wonder if it's misplaced. I mean, I have rage towards my husband too, but I'd really like to slap her. Thank you for confirming my rage. Internet snooping told me the child appears to their only one. I do feel for the live-in father and for the child who have no idea of their history. Although many on this forum advocate truth for all, I too worry about how such information would impact the live-in father, and since I have no way of helping him to pick up his pieces and heal, I will not tell him anything. The polygraph recommendation took me totally by surprise. I'd never thought of it myself. It just seems wrong to have to do. But yes, the threat of it absolutely works. He came clean prior to getting it done. Though there were no other affairs, they did sleep together more than once. The affair lasted 1 month. I was, and still am, furious that I had to threaten a polygraph to get this information because frankly, it's what I suspected all along. Why gaslight me? His response was that he thought a one-night stand would be more palatable for me. Bullcrap, it was more palatable for him. So, while this admission brought me back emotionally to day one, I also found it strangely calming. I was right and I felt I had some closure. Now we see where we can go from here. His crying is sincere. It can be manipulative, I agree, because it creates empathy on my part, leading me to more easily think I forgive. But he is clearly in crisis and doing lots of soul searching. And I appreciate that. He is working with a therapist to understand his former self, which he is absolutely stymied by. It's interesting. But he is just floored and devastated by what a crap husband he used to be, not just in terms of the affair. It's like he is seeing himself through a different lens, one that no longer makes excuses. I'm willing to wait and see what he learns. I am not angry with the child or the husband. They actually break my heart. I am angry with my husband and the O. I don't know where the road will take me, but I'm ready to travel on it. My comment: he's running damage control 25 years later. This is the mind control of cheaters. They minimize and lie to serve themselves. Why? Because saying he effed her 10 times instead of one might get you to not leave him. Still selfish as hell. They filter information to get what they want, you to stay. This is the crux of the problem with cheaters. They have the propensity to be utterly selfish and self-serving, and apparently 25 years doesn't change that. True remorse doesn't feel the need to lie. True remorse will do whatever it takes to help you heal even if you leave. This is still I care about me. Story 3. The sleeping problem. I am in the process of being divorced by my second husband, who has gotten back together with his ex-wife who he tells me he wishes he had never left to begin with. We were together for 7 years. I brought my 3-year-old son into our marriage. He is now 10 and my STBX is the only father he has ever known. However, my STBX never adopted him. He is now telling me that he is going to petition the court to not have to pay child support even though he is the only father my son has had and our only financial provider as I am disabled and haven't been able to work since 2016. However, I am not here to ask about this for financial or legal reasons. I am wondering about the ethics of me asking him for child support and him refusing to pay it. Is it wrong to ask a man who is not the biological father but who is the child's primary financial provider to pay support? He also has no interest in custody or even visitation, which has really hurt my son and is breaking my heart because my son really misses him. I don't know how he can just walk away from the child he's been raising as his own for the last 7 years. My first husband passed away suddenly and unexpectedly when my son was only 3 months old. He was only 27 and we had been married for 3 years. I do get his Social Security death benefits for my son, but it's not much, and my death benefits ended when I remarried. My first husband passed when my son was 3 months old. My son does get survivor benefits until he is 18. My first husband did not work long enough to have a lot of money in Social Security. He was only 27 when he died and he'd only been out of college 3 years. So, the death benefit is only $300 divided by month. I get $900 per month disability. My STBX has a PhD. He's a full professor at a major private university. He has tenure and he makes damn good money. He also brings in quite a bit of extra income doing online symposiums. He never adopted my son by his own choice. I would happily have let him. I wonder now if he refused specifically because he didn't plan to stick around long term. I do understand. I'm asking about the ethics, not the legality. You would think a man would want to make sure the child he had raised as his own for the last 7 years would want to make sure that child would not end up in poverty when he left the child's mother, especially since he always said how much he loved my son and was always glad I had a child from my previous marriage since he couldn't father children of his own. I've never met his ex. She was out of his life years before I met him. He's quite a bit older than me. He always told me they got married too young and it just didn't work out because they realized they wanted different things. They were only married for a few years and he admitted to me that it was his fault they split up. She matured, got a job, wanted to settle down and be an adult. He wanted to be an immature college student for as long as he could with her supporting him. Now they're both in their mid-40s with good stable jobs. So, who knows? I know he was really unhappy with me after I became disabled and dependent on him as much as I have been these last few years. I would be more than happy to share custody. I would be thrilled. My son is absolutely heartbroken that the man he knows as his father has basically abandoned him. I hate it for him. I have begged my STBX husband to remain a part of my son's life and he has outright refused. He seems to want no reminder whatsoever of the years we have spent together. I am guessing his first wife may be part of it, but since I've never met her, I honestly don't know her well enough to say. They didn't have kids together, though. He's sterile and as far as he knows he always has been. She never remarried after him and has no kids either. Maybe they just want to be alone to make up for the time together he seems to think they missed out on all these years. I'll probably never know since he won't even speak to me anymore. I came here for college, met my first husband, got married, and never went back. I seriously considered it after he died, but I had a good job by that point that I didn't want to leave. I have dual citizenship and so does my son through me. Since my STBXH is obviously not interested in remaining in my son's life, I fully expect that once my divorce is final and the lockdown ends, we will move back to Ireland and probably stay with my parents. I have serious medical issues. I hate the thought of losing my medical team. My cardiologist literally saved my life. Also, my family in Ireland is what Americans would call dirt poor. My parents are retired and have a small subsistence farm that barely supports the two of them. They don't even have broadband internet where they live. My sister already has 4 kids in a small house. There's no way I can move in with her. The only real reason to go back home is that I'm lonely. And if I go back, my in-laws from my first marriage will lose access to my son, who is their only grandchild, and they adore him. He's all they have left of my first husband, who was their only child. They live in senior housing and don't get out much anymore. My father-in-law has lung cancer and my mother-in-law has dementia, and my son and I are literally the only visitors they ever have. My son is very close to them, and he's only ever spent one summer with my parents when I was between husbands. He doesn't even remember them. So, I have a lot to think about before I make a decision. My STBX kicked us out several weeks before the lockdown started. Unfortunately, due to lockdown, most of the courts are still closed down or at the very least seriously backlogged. As far as joint assets, there weren't any. I don't drive, so no car, and we rent a condo that was in his name, so he made us move out. My son and I are currently living in low-income housing for battered women and displaced homemakers. He refuses to give me anything until the courts force the issue. He wouldn't let me take anything I didn't bring into the marriage with me. If he bought it, he kept it, even our clothes and my son's games and toys. I don't even have a computer anymore, just an older model iPhone and a dying Kindle. However, he did tell me that if I chose to go back to Ireland and get out of his life completely and never contact him again, he would give me a $10,000 settlement up front that would cover the cost of airfare and getting settled over there. But he said I would have to waive any rights to get anything more than that from him in the divorce. He even asked me to sign off on giving up his employer-based health insurance and removing myself as beneficiary on his life insurance so he can put her on it instead before he remarries her, which legally he can't remove me from either as long as I am still his wife. I will most likely be completely blind before I am 50. Right now, I have no peripheral vision and poor depth perception, and I am night blind. My family is all in Ireland, my parents and my sister. My in-laws from my first marriage live in a residential care center. My father-in-law has lung cancer and my mother-in-law has Alzheimer's. So, they can't help me. They've already told me they wish they could, but their medical care expenses are so high they have nothing left. They've already completely blown through their retirement and even had to sell their home, which they had planned to leave to me. My first husband was an only child, so there is no other family. My father-in-law's siblings is all deceased, and my mother-in-law has been estranged from her family since she was only a teen. We met while I was in college doing graduate work. He was working on his PhD at the time and was a senior grad assistant to one of my professors while I was a junior grad assistant. He was assigned to me as my mentor. We dated for about a year. Neither one of us was earning any significant income at the time other than a small stipend from the college. I definitely didn't marry him for money. I was actually making more money than he was when I became disabled because he was a college professor and I was a server admin at a fairly large financial institution in Boston. We had some savings put aside, but it was pretty much blown through on medical costs not covered by insurance, such as the live-in home nursing care I needed 24/7 for over 6 months. And I actually think he wasn't so much upset that he had to support me, as he was that I was no longer working, so we could no longer afford the fancy lifestyle we had become accustomed to. It was several years later before he got full tenure and the much higher salary that goes with it. The condo was in his name because he was already living there before we got married, with several roommates to share the rent with. Right at the moment there is no way I can work. We are living in what is basically a shelter with small individual units for women with children. No computer, just a phone and a really old Kindle. Barely even any furniture. Fortunately for me, the building provides free internet. I can't drive due to my vision issues. There are days when I literally am so weak and tired, I can't even get out of bed. If we move back to Ireland, more than likely I will end up doing what we call going on the dole, which is their equivalent of welfare. If I stay here, I'll end up doing the same. I'd rather do it with my family nearby if I need them. I just feel bad about the idea of deserting my in-laws and losing the absolutely fantastic cardiologist who saved my life and has been my primary doctor ever since. I already have a lawyer through Harvard Law School's free legal aid program. They've been very good so far, but thanks to lockdown, everything is kind of on hold right now because they closed down for several months. Hopefully we'll be able to get things going again soon. I'm not sure how much I can get from him if I fight him on the finances. He makes good money for someone in his position, but it's not much compared to what he could make in the business world. I think his salary was around $80,000 last year. He doesn't own property, and he drives a 10-year-old Explorer. Most of his money is in investments and his retirement, but I don't know what the numbers are. I know at some point my legal assistant will have to do financial discovery, but it hasn't happened yet. My vision is not the reason I can't work. I have multiple health conditions that keep me so exhausted there is no way I can work outside the home. There are days I can't even get out of bed. And because we are currently living in what is basically a shelter, although a really nice one with small apartments for families with children, I don't have access to a computer to work from home. All I have is my phone. My STBX threw us out with almost nothing, so I don't even have any personal possessions I can sell. I have applied for public assistance, but it hasn't been approved yet. At this point we are living on my disability benefits and my son's death benefits from his bio father. As soon as the travel bans lift, I will probably go home. I hate to leave my in-laws with no family to visit them, but I'm starting to think I have no choice. My father-in-law probably doesn't have much longer to live, and half the time we visit, my mother-in-law doesn't recognize us anyway. On top of which, because they are in a senior home, we haven't been able to see them since March anyway. My parents are poor, but they are quite a bit younger than my in-laws who married and had their one child when they were in their late 32s and they are now in their 80s. They are also healthy still, and even though they don't have much money, they do have a good-sized farmhouse and land. They have told me they would be thrilled to have us come back there to live with them. The last time they saw us, my son was only 3. I have been told we can stay in this housing until the lockdowns lift to travel internationally, and I'm going to talk to my lawyer next week about whether or not we can get permission to go back despite the lockdown since I am an Irish citizen. I'm also going to talk to my cardiologist about locating the very best doctor in all of Ireland to deal with my particular condition, which is pretty unusual. Honestly, the thought of being able to have the very best doctors and treatment available without worrying about paying, it's a big deal to me. Medicaid really isn't very good, at least that has been my experience. I had quite a bit of savings before I got sick and American healthcare wasn't there for me, or I'd still have quite a bit of savings. After I recovered enough to not be on 100% bed rest, I resumed being his cook, his house cleaner, and mother to my child to the greatest extent that I could, with some help from the home health aides who came in for a few hours each day. Not to mention his physical partner, even though my cardiologist said I shouldn't sleep together anymore due to the way it increases heart rate. I do not believe that he left me because of anything I did or didn't do. He left me because his ex walked back into his life after years of the two of them not seeing each other. And from what he freely admitted to me, he realized he still had a stronger connection to her, both emotionally and physically, than he had ever had with me. I also believe she had what I will call a nostalgic appeal because they were high school sweethearts. Maybe she made him feel young again, or maybe he just liked being back with someone his own age instead of someone half a generation younger than him with a child almost young enough to be his grandchild. But honestly, I truly believe he dumped me as completely as he did because she wanted him to do so, not because of anything I did. It also doesn't help that even though she's 10 years older than me, she looks younger and much prettier, because my health issues have really aged me. At this point, I have pretty much decided I will go home to my parents and make the best of things that I can. I think I very well may find that I am a lot happier back on the farm than I have ever been living in the big city. At the very least, there's a lot less stress, and they seem really thrilled at the idea of us moving back home. My son is the only one who doesn't want to go, and that's because he's still convinced my STBX is going to come back to us. I know I perhaps come across as being somewhat defeatist, but that's a pretty recent thing. I only started being this way after he threw me out and I ended up living with my child and housing little more than a homeless shelter. It's pretty damn depressing to find oneself even poorer in middle age than one was as a child, and I was a really poor child. Up until the mess that has been 2020 hit the entire bloody planet, I was actually a pretty positive person. Tried to find the good in everything, tried to thank God despite my circumstances, tried to accomplish as much in any given day as my body would let me. But with everything that has gone wrong this year, both for me personally and for humanity in general, it's been really hard to stay positive, especially when I don't even dare go anywhere because I'm so high risk. So I'm stuck in this tiny apartment all the time, with a bored child, without even a TV or computer. But it seems like every time we turn around something else is going wrong in America or in the world. Another reason I want to go back to Ireland. America is so divided it scares me, and I really just want to get away from all the anger and hate that seems to have taken over this country in the last few months. Although without getting into politics, that was one issue my STBX and I have had lately. We have been so divided politically. In some ways I am almost glad we split up when we did, because I can't imagine how badly we'd be fighting now. My STBX was always mean, and even though I put up with it, I never liked it. Some of the things he used to say about some of his students horrified me, but I learned very quickly not to call him out on it because it made him furiously angry if I did so. No, he was never physically abusive, but he did have a tendency to treat me like I was stupid. I'm guessing he'd probably be open about it now if it weren't for the fact that he works on a liberal college campus where such beliefs could get him fired in a heartbeat if he ever said the wrong thing. My comment: no, I don't think a man has the responsibility to pay child support for any children he didn't participate in bringing into the world. Instead of going after him for child support, you can probably get alimony to help you out, and start finding other ways to support yourself. The fact that he wants nothing to do with your son makes me think it's best if you cut him out otherwise, because you should want better for your child. I wouldn't want my child to spend a second with anyone who didn't care about him. I'm sorry you are dealing with this. Can you look for remote work online? That is how most people are working now.